Hello, I'm John Shepherd, and in this short video I'm going to take you on a bit of a road trip to our recent meeting in France, where some of the group competed in the Meeting Athlétique d'Artois. It was a great trip for a couple of days and we learnt a lot about competing abroad. As luck would have it, the meeting was only about 80 miles away from England via, of course, the Channel, so it was relatively easy to get to. We arrived on the Thursday with a competition on the Friday, and Jonathan and Sarah both wanted to do a bit of a shakeout to loosen up and prepare for the next day's competition, and also to gain some familiarity with the stadium. You need to decide how much you need to do to get yourself ready for the next day. Some athletes will do more than others, but I always think it's better just to keep it to a minimum. Both Jonathan and Sarah did plenty of drills and some running, whilst Jonathan did a couple of easy run-ups to get a feel for the track surface and the wind direction, which we found out was going to play a factor on the subsequent day of competition. For the competition, Sarah's competing at 6 o'clock and Jonathan at 8 o'clock. Back at the stadium, the temperature had increased as there was a heat wave going on in France, and it was around about 27-28 degrees. As noted, the wind was variable, and Sarah unfortunately had to run into the wind on many occasions during her competition. Sarah's first jump was her best, but it was a no jump, and in the second round she managed a 6.01, which unfortunately ended up being her longest jump of the day. She did have difficulty, as mentioned, dealing with the wind conditions, and had the wind been more favourable, as it was for the triple jump as you'll see later, I'm sure she would have jumped further. Nevertheless, the 6.01 was enough for victory. The triple jump was the highlight event of the evening. It featured Hugues-Fabrice Zango, who was a member of the local athletics club, but there were also 3 other guys who jumped in excess of 17 metres.
En salle, Fabrice Zango, record personnel 17,58 m.
I recorded quite a few of the triple jumpers' jumps, and the distances ranged from 15.08 to a startling 17 metres 33. I focused quite a lot on Hugues-Fabrice Zango, and I looked closely at his technique subsequently and noticed this somewhat different arm action with the forearm across his chest on the hop. So this is a further single arm or quarter push takeoff variant, but I don't know whether it's actually the best option to select, so I'll have to look more into that, or a better option perhaps I should say. It was great to see the range of jumpers in action and take note of the variations in their technique. Here's Jonathan. He opened with 15 metres 97, which was a good start, but he didn't seem to be getting into his running, hitting the right posture as he was approaching the board, and also, as we'll see on subsequent jumps, his phase ratio and the height of his phases varied quite a lot, so therefore he lacked the consistency needed to potentially get the longer jump. Another British jumper, Scott Hall, was also competing. Scott wasn't really generating the range in comparison to the other triple jumpers, and that's something that he and also Jonathan, I think, will need to think about and work on. You can see the difference here with the Armenian jumper, Agassian, and he really opens out into the contacts for the hop and step, and take a look at that leg shoot in the jump phase. This also reflects great balance across the 3 phases. Coming up is Jonathan's next effort, and this is a lesson to be learnt for all jumpers out there. He thought this was a no jump and bailed out, but it actually wasn't, and conceivably it looked like it was going to be a potentially good jump. The hop, step, step that he ended up with seemed to be well over 15 metres. Speaking of triple jump technical variations, it was interesting to see which jumpers used different types of arm action throughout their phases. You can see how some of the better jumpers managed to hold their phases and get that range, that contact, and stay balanced throughout the jump. They also seem to be able to get more energy out of the track surface, or more specifically their legs. Here's Zango in round 3 after a 17.27, and you can see that he collapses slightly going into the jump phase, yet still manages 17 meters 13. And as I've said, it's indicating that he still didn't get his phases correct, his contacts correct. Therefore, it looks like he's got a longer jump in him, a much longer one, should he get everything going in the right direction and using the power optimally. Okay, let's take a look at some of the other jumpers and some of their jumps, and you can see that some of them benefit from having greater speed coming into the board compared to others, and they still manage to break or stutter their phases so that there's not a fluency of speed going throughout them. So it indicates that even guys that have jumped further than Jonathan, for example, don't always get it right, and it also indicates, from what I'm seeing, that Jonathan is more than capable of getting in amongst these guys once he hits the positions needed to get that transition, or those transitions rather, between phases. Speaking of which, here's Jonathan, and to me he's not quite extending enough from his hop and his step to enable the foot to come back and create more of a pop between the phases. Triple jump is one of those events that takes a long time to become very proficient at it. It requires a combination of skill, technique, speed and confidence, and getting to become very consistent at it, as I've said, takes time. The event itself is a bit of a contradiction, as it requires a lot of power, but it has to be done with finesse. Okay, this is Zango in round 4, and this effort is 17 meters and 4 centimeters. It seems to me that Zango strikes the ground with a much higher hip position on the ground contacts and less knee bend, and this should enable him to carry more speed through the phases and utilize the natural energy storage and return capacities of his tendons. This is Jonathan's 5th round effort, and it's 15 meters 90, and again it sort of reinforces the fact that he wasn't quite getting the consistency needed to hit the big jump, as the jump phase here seems to have been ended earlier than what it should be. There seems to have been some forward rotation, which has probably lost some distance. And here's Zango's 5th round effort of 16 meters 99. In the final round, Jonathan went out to his 3rd jump in the 1590s with 15 meters 94.
Ils sont prêts sur la ligne, donc on va les laisser partir.
The Albanian Yasser Tricky went out to 16 meters 52 in the final round despite this forward rotation, and this was actually his furthest jump of the day.
Alors, Lignatos est attendu au podium. Lignatos.
Agassian completed his series of jumps with 16 meters 38, and his best on the day was 16 meters 58. Last up, it was Zango, and it was certainly worth waiting for. As the man from the home club leapt out to 17 meters 33, which there seems to be some confusion over as to whether or not it's a personal best, as at the beginning of the competition the announcer said that his best was 17 meters 58. However, on looking, it does seem that the 17 meters 33 is his longest jump. It's certainly worth taking another look at his jump, and the step phase in particular just seems to keep going, and then the foot is extended well in front of the hips in order to generate that contact speed. The top guys, when they're on form, seem to be able to get in the right positions and hit the ground really powerfully and quickly, and this is no doubt due in part to the teachings of his coach, the great Teddy Tamgo. Overall, we had a good trip to France. However, I think that both Jonathan and Sarah would have both liked to have jumped further, but I'm sure they will do so over the remaining months of the season. Overseas competitions can be very motivating, but they can also have some potential stresses as well, and the atmosphere and the crowd and the fact that you're competing against higher level athletes in particular can sometimes add more pressure. But with more experience and exposure to these types of competitions, I believe that the two of them are going to jump much further. As usual, thanks for watching, and do subscribe to the channel and leave any comments you may have in the section below or through my other social media.